Welcome to this edition of Policy Connections. Today we have the very talented director of the Idaho Department of Environmental Quality, Curt Fransen. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate being here.
We have a couple of questions, and the issues that we are dealing with here are fairly complicated. We're going to try and narrow this down into perhaps a couple of different editions because of the nature of the issues that we're dealing with. But it's a tremendous opportunity for us to talk with you, so I appreciate that. First question is an issue that I think that we'll see in this next legislative cycle, and it has to do with NPDES Primacy. We're one of just a few states that doesn't have NPDES Primacy, and it's a permit that's required by the EPA for discharges. IACI has been working closely with DEQ over the summer to put together a plan to gain primacy from the EPA. Director, can you give us an idea of the nuts and bolts or the practical aspects of what kind of timeline are we looking at, and how will this process work looking into the future through the legislative process and beyond?
Certainly. You know, as you mentioned, Alex, and you know better than me in some ways, this has been an issue in the state for about 12 or 13 years, starting back around the time that DEQ became a state agency in 2000. And the reason that this debate or this issue has gone on so long is that there's some pretty difficult questions to answer and some real benefits and some costs to the state to move in this direction. So let's talk a little bit about the costs. We're currently estimating that it would cost about $2.5 million a year to run this program once it's built out, and that's about 25 FTEs. So that's a fairly significant increase in the size of state governments, of DEQ staff. And you know, there's the issue too of capability. DEQ hasn't been an agency very long, about 13 years. I think in the past there's been some concerns about, does EPA or DEQ have the capability of running such a program? I believe we've demonstrated to some satisfaction of most people that we've run pretty good permitting programs in the air side and the reuse permits and hazardous waste permits. So I think we've helped answer that kind of question. Another issue here is how long would it take to implement such a program? We're estimating currently that once the legislature says go, we're talking about a 3-year implementation period to get approval from EPA, to build the staff, to build the funding. After that, it would probably be another 4 years or so to incrementally take on this program. So it's not an overnight thing. We won't be throwing the switch overnight. So with those kinds of costs, what are the benefits? Probably the first one is really obvious. We would have Idahoans interpreting Idaho water quality standards as to Idaho activities to protect Idaho water. So basically, there is a benefit, and I think that most people agree to this, that there is a benefit to locally implementing these laws. And they are going to be implemented either federally or by the state, and we feel like implementing them from Boise and our regional offices is far better than Seattle and DC. So there's that obvious benefit. Another one is that we will design this program in cooperation with industry, environmental groups, and other interested parties through our negotiated rulemaking process. And that's proved to be a fairly practical, useful process in the past for bringing everybody to the table and trying to design a program or requirements that meet people's needs the best we can. There's still concerns on both sides, or either side, or any side, but it is a good process, and that would be a useful process to design a fairly complicated program and how we're going to implement this program. Another benefit probably to the state is that there are certain implementation tools that DEQ will be able to use that EPA currently can't or doesn't have much inclination to use. We can allow trading, for instance, of pollutants to meet water quality standards. We can use site-specific criteria to address specific areas of the state where water quality criteria or standards should be adjusted for one reason or another. We can provide extended compliance schedules where standards become much more stringent, giving time for industry, giving time for our communities to adapt to the ever more stringent federal standards that we all face, and to achieve water quality in a reasonable period of time. And the last thing is probably pretty important to some members of your group, Alex, and that is that EPA hasn't ever had a very good success rate in timely issuing these permits. DEQ, at least through our other permitting programs, has shown that we can issue timely permits, and of course our goal would be to issue these permits in a timely manner every 5 years, and rather than extending them year after year, as sometimes happens now with EPA.
Excellent. So basically, to summarize, we're looking at the benefits for the state of Idaho, the benefits for our members, benefits for municipalities would be speed and flexibility for standards, and I think that's pretty important, and we look forward to getting involved in the legislative process, as well as what we anticipate will be a Herculean task when it comes to the negotiated rulemaking, but your staff has proven itself very capable of working through that process as well, so thank you very much for that.